What if you could live your life judgment-free? Are you ready to live the unapologetic, confident life that God designed for you? If you are, then this is the place to be. Welcome to the Bold, Brave, and Sassy Show. It's time to break free of physical, spiritual, and heart-centered challenges that have held you back for way too long. Listen in for powerful tips and tools to help you break free today. Hear from leading experts, along with me, Annie Berryhill, your host and personal guide to freedom. Now it's time to live like no one's judging. Let's go. Hey there, everybody. This is Annie Berryhill, and welcome to the Bold, Brave, and Sassy Show. I am super happy and super excited for you to join us today. I have another amazing guest. I'm so blessed because I just have amazing friends and amazing people that I've met through my friends to be able to share what they do with you. And my goal is always for you to be encouraged and inspired and motivated, not just in a temporary sense, but in a real live way that gets to the core of your being to live a bold, brave, and sassy life. And today is no different. Today I have an awesome guest in my friend Melanie Greeno, and she is a force of nature. And I know that I say that all the time, but I just must really attract powerful women and powerful people into my life because she is one of them. She inspires me. She's really someone that I look up to and aspire to be like. She's very successful in business, but she's also very successful in working with the people that come into her life for professional guidance and help. So let me tell you just a little bit about Melanie. I'm going to share her bio with you right now. She is a powerhouse thriver. Keep that in mind, who has overcome insurmountable suffering to build an empire. And in the process, she actually has empowered and help tens of thousands of humans worldwide to reach for their dreams and build their own empires with ease. Melanie teaches people to build their own empire using a simple, duplicatable system that makes business building achievable through the power of intentional success. Now, Melanie is the real deal. She's been featured in NBC, CBC, Fox Business News, My Business from Home, My Success from Home, The Danny Johnson Show, Women of Distinction Awards, and many, many other places. So she is highly sought after, highly knowledgeable, and it is my pleasure to say hello to Melanie now.
Hi, Annie. I'm so glad to be on the show. Thank you for having me.
Well, of course, it's been my goal when I started the show. You were one of the first people on my list. So this is a treat for me, 100%. So I love in going through all of your information. There's just so many places that we could start talking about. But I think the most logical place is really to help people understand you a little bit better, for you to share a bit of your story about how you got to this place of helping people build their empire. That's a huge thing. Empire is big, right? That makes me think really big stuff. So tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, let me see. That's a big question. Basically, when I look back over my journey, I turned 44 this year, and it made me reflect upon kind of where I started, where I came from, lower income, middle class kind of home, one pair of shoes, two pair of jeans for the school year type deal. And I was a straight A student. And the reason that's important for you to understand is that I was an overachiever. I was a high performer in school. I actually finished grade 7 and grade 4. And so I had this scenario in my life where I was really overachieving at school and in activities, sports, all-star in sports. But behind the scenes, I had been abused by 5 different abusers, all overlapping for 11 years. Oh. And so there was this internal conflict that happened because I would go to school and show up like this, And everybody thought, oh, well, everything's fine. But in the background, I was, suffering from night terrors. I had OCD, developed OCD, which is when you're constantly checking and doing things that it's called obsessive compulsive disorder. I was smoking by the time I was 9. I was doing drugs by the time I was 12. I was drinking heavily by the time I was 13.
Wow.
I was stealing. I mean, I was just not I was a mess, really, right? And I tortured my parents, my poor parents. So here I was with this dichotomy of, knowing that I had greatness in me because I could do whatever I decided to do or set my mind to. But then I had all of this darkness and horrible fear and really riddling anxiety that was driving my behaviors into the wrong path. And I remember when I was 16, I was invited to attend a personal development seminar. And it changed my life, actually. That first day I thought, and it's so funny because, and some of you will relate to this, but you see somebody doing something and you think, I either want to do that or I could do it better than them. And I was so arrogant at the time. I thought the presenter was okay, but I thought I could do a better job, which was so funny. But that did kind of open my eyes to the bigger scenario and bring some healing, because at that event, they did do some kind of inner reflection work. But interestingly enough, through that entire process, through that entire time, the one thing that was constant was that I had a belief in God. I just had this knowing that there had to be something more. I attended a church that didn't really teach any kind of deep religion or anything, but it was just something where I was seeking something outside of myself. And I really, truly, when I was 15 and 16, I was in 3 major accidents, Annie, major accidents. I went off a 40-foot cliff in a car. I was paralyzed from the waist down in a skiing accident, told I was never going to walk again, actually, by the number 1 neurosurgeon in BC, told me I was never going to walk again. And then I fell on the back of a pickup. And through those 3 things, I could literally feel something or someone carrying me through. And I know that sounds funny, but honest to God, I remember, I'll just take falling on the back of a pickup. See the pavement coming for my face and literally felt this hand tuck my head, and I rolled into a ball. And when I got to the hospital, the doctor said, I have no idea why you're alive. There's no way. And I have a tiny little scar on my hand. I had all the skin ripped off my arm and leg. So just this process of like trauma after trauma. So in my bio, when it says, suffering, I'm talking like, suffering, not like first world problem suffering, but like actual, like my
physical,
right? My inner being picked apart by all of these predators and just really thinking there was something wrong with me. Right.
I mean, how could you not? I think that's the scarring that happens, just to interject, when someone is brutal to you or there's a trauma in your life. The lasting effect is on the victim, because they think that they caused it, or they think that there's something wrong that this happened to them. And it's so common and it's so sad, but it sets up that person to take a course based on who they believe they are, which is this person who deserved it, right?
Bingo. And then you just start to recreate in environments that make you or reinforce the belief that you have about yourself. And so that could be bad relationships. That could be, quitting at things that you really want to do. This is a cycle, right? And then interestingly enough, at 19, I was, doing drugs, drinking, really not doing well. I mean, I was working and that was all good and having fun, but it was not good. And I had been with a guy for a couple of years, and I got pregnant and got to 8.5 months pregnant. And the moment I got pregnant, the day I got pregnant, I quit smoking, I quit drinking, I quit doing drugs. I was just like, I'm done. There's no way I'm going to hurt a human being the way I've been hurt. And that was a turning point for me, right? That was a moment where I was like, okay, no, things need to turn around. Well, that son, he actually died. And so that was another notch. And it was the only time actually in my entire journey up until that point that I actually wanted to commit suicide. I was like, I want off this planet. I'm done. This is just, it was the straw, right? It was a straw that broke the camel's back. But again, it was like this force that was urging me on. knowing or letting me know that there was something more. And so that kind of continued for a few years. And then I got married and got pregnant with my daughter, and I call her my angel. I tell her that she needs to tuck in her wings, because when she came, I literally transformed everything. But within the first year of her life, unfortunately, I ended up in a women's shelter from abuse, and I was homeless and had no money, and I had no bank account, and I had no car, and I was literally, I think, less than $5 to my name and the clothes on my back. And I had to go. It's so funny how life's experiences, they sometimes force you into better decisions. Had to go get a welfare check so I could get an apartment. And I'll never forget, I was sitting across from this woman who made me feel like I was scum of the earth. She made me feel like I was a leech on society. And I literally had a plan to just get a check so I could get an apartment, so I could get back on my feet and, whatever. And I remember sitting in that chair thinking, no way in hell am I ever putting my financial stability or trust in another human being again. I will build an empire.
Wow.
And it will be mine. And so I walked out of that office, and yes, I got the check for $800. And I had to start off raising my daughter in the most expensive city in Canada on $800 a month. And then it went up to $1,100. Can you imagine?
No.
I don't even know how I did it. But through that process, I literally got stronger and stronger. And I know, you and I, before the interview, were talking about how when we take action towards the things that we want, it's the actual action that helps us to believe for more, right? It's like, if you just look at the thing you want, you don't move towards it, it can't move towards you. But when you start to take even small steps, you start to believe that it's possible. And that's kind of how I started. And then I literally went back to school for a couple of years, didn't get a degree, just studied different things here and there, and then bought a business. And it's kind of been, the rest is history.
It's amazing to me. It seems like people who grow up, and now you, having been abused by 5 different people concurrently, is enough to drive most people to do everything that to me, I always, I always say to people, or when I meet people, like, I have a lot of compassion and empathy, because unlike that person who was judging you for being on, public assistance, because at the end of the day, it's about having a splinter in your soul. So all of those traumas put a splinter in your soul, and you didn't have
broken.
Yeah. And you didn't have the tools as a young girl to be able to actually remove the splinter so that you could heal. So instead, what we do is we cover it up with things that try to make us not feel the pain of the splinter. Right. So we drink and we shop and we, what promiscuous things, activity, whatever it is that can make us feel like we're worth something, and also distract us from the pain of the splinter in our souls, right? And so it's so interesting to me that so many times how people will either completely surrender to that belief about themselves that they are nothing, that they're crap, that they're the scum of the earth, and live accordingly, and never take responsibility for the action that they take in their life, right? If they're a victim, it's true, that's not going to change, but they have a decision. You made the decision. And it seems to me sometimes the people that have had the most trauma and the most unbelievable, insurmountable suffering are the ones who actually go further than the ones that were super comfortable and didn't have anything. And sometimes their lives are, there's no one way, there's no one way, but it seems like to be an all or nothing things with people who have struggled with incredible trauma. I don't know.
There's 2 things in what you said there that I think are really important to punctuate. One is that, we do cover up the hurt, the wounds, etc. But I think that one thing that we miss as humans is that sometimes we cover that pain up with bad dialogue. Meaning we talk to ourselves so poorly that nothing anyone else could do could hurt us. And so then the recording starts going, you're worthless, you're no good, you're just going to get hurt again. Why would you try? Every time you try, it fails. It didn't go the way you expected, blah, blah, blah. Like just this nonstop recording. And I think that people use that as a crutch to stay stuck. And then the second thing that it's really, really important to recognize, I think, is that when we as victims, and because obviously I was a victim, but I never thought about myself like that. That wasn't a thing in my head, because I remember, I don't even know where I heard it. It could have been It could have been, my dad was an alcoholic, so it could have been the AA program. I honestly can't remember, but it was life-changing for me. And that was when you do not forgive, when you do not release, when you do not take back your power, they're still abusing you every single day. Mm-hmm. So the more rent I let you pay in my head, the more space you get to take up, the longer you get to continue to abuse me. And I just refused to, maybe it was my winning competitive spirit. I refused to give them any more space in my head. I was like, we're done. No, you've already destroyed, like taken the very, core of my innocence. But what's really good is that if you're listening to this and you've been the person who's been a victim, you've been suffered at the hands of another human, that innocence or that trust can be restored. I promise you. Mm-hmm. And there are things that you'll never be able to erase and moments that you'll never be able to get rid of. There's always, going to be kind of triggers, meaning you don't have to react to the triggers, but they kind of are always there. But you don't have to stay in that place of thinking like a victim. You can truly have that. And it's through the power of love that's mm-hmm. restored, right? Like loving yourself, mm-hmm. right? Loving others, letting, for me, it's God, knowing that God is love and that everything is perfect just as it's supposed to be. And so it can be restored.
I think it's so important what you said is that we really do subscribe to the victim mentality at times, and we create the talk tracks out of that identity of being a victim, right? Totally. That's what we own, right? Yeah. And it's that idea of not forgiving someone is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Right.
All we do is get sicker and sicker and sicker and die more and more and more inside, and it's killing us, and they're oblivious to it. Oblivious. They just followed their sick, whatever compelled them to do the act. And they just went on with their life, abusing more people, forgetting about it, whatever. And we're stuck with the idea of like, can't you ever let go? And so I think that there's a huge part of it where we have to make that decision. And as we were talking before, I was talking about how similar we are, having similar backgrounds, mine not to the degree, but I did discover what it is about us that is very much the same. And that's from a very early age, despite what happened to us, we always had this competitiveness, and which says, it doesn't matter what you do, you're not going to win. You're not going to beat me.
Yep.
Right. So as I was getting punishments, physical punishments when I was younger, I remember saying, you're not going to make me cry. You're not going to make me cry. And I think that there's a countenance to a person like that maybe that is the difference. And I don't think it's something that you have to have. I think it's something that you can develop, that you can, once you can see the situation for what it is and saying, stepping outside yourself and looking in and going, what am I doing? Why am I letting this still get to me? What can I do? And you have to put your foot down and just say no more, right? And forgiveness really is the first thing. I know that you've done some stuff with Danny Johnson, and, she has a great, segment on forgiveness. She starts out a whole weekend with forgiveness. And I never really understood that until probably more recent days, about how the power of that. It's not just about letting the other person off the hook. It's actually taking yourself off the hook.
Oh gosh. And releasing the fear. Here's the thing, like you can be a tennis ball or you can be an egg. Those are your choices. You have the choice every day. Life is going to hit you. It's going to hit you hard. It's going to knock you down, and it's going to put you flat on your face. Your choice is, are you going to break and splat like an egg? When it gets dropped, you're going to bounce back like a tennis ball. And those that win are the ones that bounce back. And sometimes the bounce back is longer than others, right? There's some things that take longer. But if you are unwilling to forgive and put yourself at the top of that list, like I'm pretty sure you've done some crappy stuff, right? So let's just put that at the top of the list, and punishing yourself and eating that cupcake when you weren't supposed to, and drinking the wine when you said you wouldn't, and, being nasty to your husband when you should, be loving him, or whatever that it is. When you forgive yourself, you release yourself from the fear. And listen to me, fear is your enemy. Fear inside your head will literally dictate the choices you make, the success that you have, how far you go, all of it. And when you make your decisions based out of fear, all you do is bring more fear. And I'll tell you, and I'm sure you've noticed this, Annie, that, anxiety and depression are rampant in our society. There's crazy stuff going on, especially in the US with the schools and that I don't even want to, speak it. But it's like we have to take responsibility as human beings for the intention that we are here to deliver. So you came to the world, I came to the world, he came to the world with a soul. You're here, right? You're a person and you have a purpose to deliver. And you can either make that something that makes the world a better place. You can be, you've heard it said, you're born on a day, you die on a day, the dash in the middle is what matters. And your dash can mean nothing and that's your choice, but don't suck your thumb and come crying to me if you make it about nothing. That's your business. And if you're not feeling good about yourself, go do something for somebody else. Go find somebody to serve. Go find somebody to love. Go give away something, because I do believe that life is about, giving and getting, right? You don't get by taking, you get by giving. And if you live by a giving philosophy, you give more service, give more love, give more accountability, give more mercy, give more money, all those things are going to come flooding back at you and 100-fold. But if you aren't willing to release the fear, forgive yourself and other people, well, then you're just stuck in this little prison and you're going to, then it will be the day you were born and the day you die and nothing in the middle other than suffering. Exactly. And I just, and what you said, like, people, we got to take personal responsibility for ourselves, and you can't control what other people do to you, but you can control your response to that circumstance.
All the time. It's beautiful. And even just as you speak, just painting these pictures of the adversary of fear and how it is so easy to get in the habit of fear. And when whatever you plant, you're going to reap. So don't plant corn and expect to get a potato.
Exactly.
Right? Don't plant fear. Don't agree with fear and expect to reap peace, because that is the antithesis. They don't morph. DNA doesn't change. Fear is fear, and everything that goes with fear, whether that's name a negative emotion, name something negative. Oh. And you're so right. And I loved how Christopher Reeve, after he was paralyzed, they asked him how he survived like the loneliness and feeling trapped and feeling just so sad about life because he was in his situation. And he said, you know what? I go help somebody. I go help.
Exactly.
Somebody. And it's like, when you want to feel better about yourself, about your life, just take that tiny little step. Again, going back to what you said about tiny little steps, take a tiny little step and go volunteer at a soup kitchen or a meal distribution center through a church, or, if you don't go to church, that's fine, but just go help somebody do something. Help someone, open the door for someone. Oh, come on. That's like the most basic thing. And people don't even do it anymore.
Smile at people.
And
there's
smile
a thought.
At people. Really smile at people and look them in the eye and just convey like the idea of that everybody has a hurt that they're going through, and we all hurt and we all are scared. And if we could have that realization, how much more kindness there would be in the world and compassion, rather than always thinking that someone's against you. Now, my Marine son, my husband, the male population tends to have a much more bleak look on people because their nature is to be protective. And so they may not want to be so willing to be open, but I think women are the connectors in the relational sense. And so we have that gift, and I think God protects us in that a lot of times. Not to say that we're not victims of those kind of crimes, because we are, but I'm not saying to smile and be really warm and tender with a guy walking in a dark alley at night, like, get your butt out of there, let's not be stupid. But it's so true. Like, seeds will grow into what they were designed to grow into, just like you said. We were designed. And I always say to people, like, if you were born into this world, you made the cut and you have a purpose. I don't care if you're in a wheelchair, if you can never actually physically do anything with your hands, you still have a purpose. There's a reason that you're here. And so find it and live it.
Absolutely. And the title, you've got Bold, Brave, and Sassy of your podcast. And bravery is not the absence of fear. Bravery is acting in spite of fear. And being bold comes from the ability to recognize that, I love, and I always give it the wrong title, but anyways, I got it from Nelson Mandela. He said, who are you not to be amazing, beautiful, brave, etc.? you playing small does not serve the world. You are a child of God. And when you liberate yourself from your own fear, your presence automatically liberates others. And that really is my entire mandate. When I was in the women's shelter, I printed that off. I put it on the inside of my cupboard, which was the only space that I had.
Wow.
And then I took it into my first apartment, and I've read that poem. I don't even know. I'm going to say 1,000 times.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, listen, if I can liberate myself on a daily basis, because sometimes it's week by week, minute by minute, etc., then I can liberate others. And at the end of the day, isn't that really what it's all about? Because I'll tell you, a life lived for yourself is worth nothing. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, I've made a lot of money in my career, and it's nothing. Money's nothing. Money's just a tool.
It's another thing, right?
But the lives that I've impacted, the changes, the marriages that we've saved, the millions of debt that's been paid off, the people that have come into their own as CEOs, the people that have decided to live their purpose, that's all that matters. That's what it's all about.
And that can only happen. That's why God created us to be connected to each other. That's why we are connected to each other, because he, it comes down from him. He's a CEO, right? And gives us each our mandate and each of our jobs. And when we do our particular thing, whether it's our gifts, our talents, our strengths, our just innate ways of being, and we use that for the betterment of other people, we are bettered. And the world is better because everyone's leveling up, everyone's playing up, everyone's walking in less fear, walking in more of the God-given power and design. I mean, and power is not necessarily being like an influencer or being on stage, but literally those things that make you come alive. That's power.
Exactly.
That's the real power. And God gives us that as a gift. And we often play that small victim role and we never get to walk into it. And then we're resentful that it happens to everybody else. Well, guess what? You got to do the work. You got to show up. You got to put aside those things that keep you from, being bold, which to me is saying the things that you believe and sharing what you believe, even if someone disagrees with you. It's okay.
Oh gosh. And if they disagree with you, it's totally okay. You're not looking for everyone to agree. You're looking for the ones that see what you see and feel how you feel and think how you think. And that's called your tribe. And when you find those people, then you can, connect with them in a way that really matters and really impact people. But if you're so worried about everyone liking you and everybody agreeing with you, you're useless, honestly. And I mean that with the deepest respect, but don't be a useless tool. You have been made to sharpen, like iron sharpens iron, right? We are tools to be used to increase the fabric of humanity. And when you are worried about what people think of you, you are a useless tool. You're like a dull saw. Like you're just, you've got to really get to the place of acknowledging and recognizing that what people think of you is not your business. That's their business. It is not your business. As long as you are acting with true intention, because I'll tell you what, Annie, and you're going to, obviously you're growing your brand and you're doing amazing things and you're going to have people that don't like you. And they're just going to be like, oh, did you hear what she said? There's just always those haters out there, but like haters are meant to bring you an inner fortitude so that you can overcome. And if you succumb instead of overcome, what'll happen is they literally steal your purpose, your joy, and your passion. Like it just goes out the window. So, and anybody, listen to me, anybody who's going to do anything great is going to have 50% of the people at least that don't agree with them. And that is totally that's the way it's supposed to be.
Exactly.
So that's okay, right? It's like, just acknowledge it and move on.
And I think it's two things you were saying is being a useless tool. It's people that are so focused on and obsessed with approval, right? And that always makes me feel a little sad because I know there's such a brokenness within them that's not been healed and that's not been rectified, and that they're just searching for likes and hearts and thumbs up and just everybody's on their side. Well, the truth is, if you are doing your work exactly what you said, you're going to have a lot of people that are against you, and almost as a measuring tape of saying you're on the right track because you're really pissing some people off, or you're really making people not want.
So true.
And it's the idea of like, God is so contrary to the world that if the world's doing something, look at the opposite, and that's probably where God is on the situation or the issue, and for us to be social media is like the worst and the best thing in the world, because so many people get caught in the trap of approval, which does reflect that nature of neediness to be approved before they can do anything. No, do something, help someone. And that's all you need. One person approving because you held the door open for them or smiled is way better than 10,000 random people liking your stuff.
Yeah.
They're just scrolling through and not even paying attention. It's like
Totally.
depth versus width. And I just think it's so important. And you have such wisdom and such a way of compelling people and through how you speak to just stop being a weenie.
Stand up.
Just stand up. Like your
Yeah.
spine, like you have a spine, and it's meant to keep you upright and walking tall, shoulders back, focused on the goal. And don't let those people who are in their own crap, take you down.
Bingo.
And totally distract you from what it is you're meant here to do. And I will tell you 100%, I have spent a lot of my life, because of the start I had, because of the belief that I had to earn everything, earn everyone's love, earn everyone's approval. I was exactly like you. I'd be one person at home and I'd go to school and I'd be, as perfect as I could be and want everybody to like me, because that would offset what was happening not at school. And so I think it's powerful stuff, and we can hear it. It's funny. I've heard this. I heard this when I was in my probably early 30s, in my 40s. And really it started to click probably my late 40s, where I was like, oh, that's what that means, because I wasn't ready, or I didn't allow it to come settle on me and put my pride aside and my stubbornness to hold on to what was, because it was safe and known, and walk into this unknown that actually allowed me to be more free. Just such a dichotomy. You're just like, what? That's such a, what? That doesn't even make sense. So one of the things that I wanted to just delve into a little bit with you, and I can see, I don't know if listeners can hear this, but I can hear the timeline. I can see it in my head. I can see over your life of what has led you to become the success that you've become. And I love to talk to people that are successful on this show, but nobody has become successful without having gone through challenging things and varying degrees of things. And that's the human condition. And I think that's where people get really mad at other people, like, oh, look what she's doing, because they only see the current. They don't see, the bottom of the iceberg of that, graphic that we always see all the time. So tell me a little bit about your definition. This really stuck out to me, of intentional success. I can see the timeline, but I want to know, just like encapsulate it for me.
So as I started coaching people, I came across this human issue of, I want that thing. I want that thing. I'm going to visualize that thing. I'm going to pray for that thing. I'm going to focus on that thing. And then they're waiting for that thing. And then the thing doesn't show up. I'm just like, okay, wait. Yeah. There's like a couple steps in between wanting the thing and getting the thing, right? And so I developed a system, actually. It's a Build an Empire success system. And it's just a way for people to set goals and intentionally move towards their goals. Because as I looked over the timeline of my life, I realized anything great that I had done or not great that I had done had been broken down into little micro pieces of activity that I did repeatedly. And so they're called key performance indicators. So one of the things, because I do coaching for individuals, and then I do coaching for, and when I say coaching, it's really consulting, like I'm like big strategy. But at the end of the day, it's all the same. There is, your goal that you want to achieve. And then there's key performance indicators that will get you to that goal. And those are activities that if you just do those activities, you will end up at your goal. And instead of doing and putting those out where they're like really strategic, people end up spinning their wheels and frustrated because they're not getting the result. When instead, let's take a real example. Let's say you want to increase your sales, you want to increase your business, you want to increase your reach. Well, to do that, there are certain things you need to do every single day to make that thing happen. Now, the timeline, it may be 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, that doesn't matter, but what things are going to move the needle in the right direction. And so as I started looking back over my life, I realized all the failures had key performance indicators. Because I was doing certain things, they led to certain results. Like, that is rocket science, but that is how we are as humans. We forget that our actions are the reason we have the result. Like my butt is 2 sizes bigger right now than it should be because I've been drinking wine and eating cupcakes. Duh. Right? Like, so, but then Annie, the thing about that is, what do we do next? What do I do next? I start feeling sorry for myself. I start looking at the skinny girls that can eat anything, and I start sucking my thumb and acting like a victim. And it's like, okay, well, the power of potential success says I will take personal responsibility for everything I have in my life right now. Whether or not someone did something to me or not is not my business. What is the fact is there is results that are happening right now. What activities do I need to do to change that result in the coming days? And to write those down and track them. I just read a study that said people who self-monitor their behavior and their activities are 2.5 times more likely to achieve their goals than the rest of the population. And that just simply means, did I do what I needed to do to move the needle today? Exactly. That's the power of intentional success. You can get anywhere. You can do anything. You could become a millionaire this year. You could, give $100,000 to charity. You could lose 100 pounds. There's a lot you could do this year, but only if you choose the right activities to get you to your goal.
It's really true. I've worked a lot with nutrition and fitness clients, and there's definitely a place for tracking. The wild card in nutrition and fitness is it's not just always about food in, energy out, energy in, and energy out. It's a nice simple equation, but there's a lot of wild cards in terms of like food isn't exactly what the calorie count is or the macro count is. But in business, in moving towards a goal that is pretty concrete, having those behaviors that you do repetitively is super important and tracking them, because you can look back and say, well, on Monday, I made 4 calls. On Tuesday, I made 0. Wednesday, I made 7. Thursday. And you're looking at the average, but the reality was the requirement was that you make 3 calls a day. Right. And you can look back and go, I didn't have that many prospects, or I didn't have that many things happen that I wanted to happen. And you look back at it black and white, and you have to be honest with yourself and say, I took my foot off the gas, or I was lazy that day on purpose, and it's no one else's fault but mine. And it's not about the blame game or making yourself feel bad or being whatever. It's just saying, this is the place that I can improve.
And it's about inner fulfillment and knowing, like, listen, don't keep saying you want something that you're not willing to work towards. Like, because then all you're doing is defeating your own inner fulfillment. Like, you don't need to be a millionaire if you don't want that. And if you do say you want that, then do the behaviors that are going to get you there. I will tell you this though, most people set their goals in a year, right? They think, I'm going to do all this in a year. I'm guilty of this. When in fact, they underestimate what they can do in 10 years. So instead of being like, I'm going to cram it all in right now, like, let's take a long view, big picture view of what do you want your empire to look like? What does Annie's empire look like? Because your empire is going to be different than mine, right? There's going to be common threads, of course, but then our activities are going to look drastically different. So I think the other thing about all of that is that mindset. Mm-hmm. Your mindset will determine whether you take the action necessary to win or not. And I'll tell you guys, it is very common. 98% of the population are thumb suckers, honestly. And I'm guilty of it too. Like, I'll find myself, like I just said, feeling sorry for myself. I topped the scale, the heaviest I've ever been 2 weeks ago. And I was like, enough, straight up. We're done. I've lost 10 pounds in 2 weeks. I'm done. Like, I know what I need to do. I got to go to the gym. I need to do my interval training. I know what I need to eat. I can't put the cupcake and the wine in my mouth. Like, stop it already.
Exactly.
And I don't know, Annie, if you've heard, and this is kind of going to be hardcore for some people, but I want to really encourage, if you're the person that has trouble turning the ship around, if you're the person that, you've been down for a long time and you're having a hard time getting back up, I want you to really hear that the down times are the times where your character is tested, and you will either respond and get steel within your character, or you will continue to stay on the floor. And there's a an audio that you can Google mother giraffe audio. There's an audio that I listened to that has this motivational speech in it. And he's talking about the fact that, giraffes, of course, are, however tall, their legs are 11 feet, whatever.
Right.
And when they have a baby, they do it standing up and the baby hits the ground. So the first thing a baby giraffe feels is thud. And then the baby gets back up, gets its wits about it and stands up, and the mother giraffe pushes it down, kicks its feet out from underneath of it. And people think that that's really harsh. Like if you watch that in the wild, that's horrifying, right? Like what's up? You think the mom's going to help it stand up, but in fact, she pushes it down. She doesn't do it once. She does it repeatedly pushes the baby to the floor, repeatedly. And the reason for that is she knows that if that baby doesn't get on its feet, gets its wits about it, and get its legs underneath of it so it can run, it will die.
Mm-hmm.
And in life, listen, life is hard. It's challenging. Stuff happens. And I know there's a thread of thought out there that says that, oh, that's only if you think life is hard. No, life is actually hard. But when we have zero resistance to the difficult times, meaning allow the difficult times, allow the down times to train us, to groom us. Ask yourself, how can I be better? What do I need to do to get my legs underneath of me? How do I need to think differently? Who do I need to be to pull myself out of this hole? Well, then all of a sudden you will empower yourself. And I know, Annie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When you overcome yourself, all of a sudden the entire world is your oyster, because you realize that the slavery that you've been experiencing is in your mind. It's in your doubt, it's in your debt, it's in your fear. And when you can liberate yourself from those things, everything becomes possible.
It's so true. That's such a great analogy. And I'll definitely share that note about that story, the giraffe story, in the show notes, so people will be able to link to it. And what it makes me think too is that as human beings, when we get knocked down, it's offensive to us. Like, oh, I can't believe I just got knocked down. Whereas the baby giraffe is like, boop, I just get back up. Boop, I just get back up. There's no judgment on it. It becomes so rote and automatic that they not only are not offended, they expect it as part of life. This is how life is. It's going to knock me down. My job is to just get back up to maintain my survival. This is how I was taught. And I think it's so powerful because most people have such an opposite opinion of getting knocked down. It is a learning time. You have to push yourself off the floor. Guess what? That's a push-up. You're getting stronger.
Exactly.
That is literally it. I know with the goal thing, going back to the KPI, it's really super, super powerful in almost all of goal setting. Again, nutrition and fitness is a little bit different in that what you put in isn't always exactly what you get out, because there's hormones, there's sleep, there's stress, there's variances that affect your body composition as well. But what I do like about it is if you set yourself up to do daily habits and activities that seem so small that they're ridiculously easy too, and business is different. So this is a little bit different, but it's still the same overall.
It's so the same.
It's the repetitive nature. It's the commitment to doing it over and over, even if it's not the most fun thing in the world. Saturday, go to the grocery store. Sunday, do some meal prep. Make sure that your vegetables are cut up. Make sure that your meat's cooked ahead of time and maybe some salads are prepared, is going to set you up for success. Now, that's maybe not repetitive, but eating a salad every day instead of having a triple-decker sandwich and some fries on the side, that's going to pay off. And so it's that commitment to doing the small things in a repetitive way, as opposed to doing what often people do in goal setting for fitness and nutrition as well. I want to lose 25 pounds by tomorrow.
Right.
And what I always say to people is, tell me about how long it took you to get this fat.
Yeah.
And straight up just say, how did it take you 6 months, 6 years? Well, I probably gained 25 pounds over the last 3 years. So let me get this straight. You gained 25 pounds over 3 years and you want to lose it in 6 weeks.
Doesn't make sense.
As soon as they say that, they're like, that doesn't make sense. You go from making no money to wanting to make $1 million in the next 6 months, and you've never made any money. Is that realistic? Because when we set ourselves up to have these all or nothing sort of extreme makeovers of our lives, we have to realize that it's turning the Titanic. The Titanic didn't just go, burn out and just like turn like a Camaro, right? when they turned away from the iceberg, it was like slow, slow, slow. And the ship responded slowly. It's the same with resetting your mindset. And that's why those tiny little repetitive steps are so, so important, because they're rewriting it, right? If our brains are computers, we're overwriting all the things that we've done habitually wrong and creating new ones.
And there's the excuses that you buried in the middle there, or the potential excuses. So you didn't say excuses, you said real life challenging things, right? Could be your hormones, could be your sleep. I dealt with all of those things. That's why I gained the weight, actually. My hormones were totally bottomed out. But I used it as an excuse, when in fact, I could have hired somebody, which I eventually did, to test my hormones, get me back on the right path. So the things that can be the reasons why not are the things that you need to turn into the reasons why. Exactly. And when we can really get to the place of personal responsibility and hire the appropriate people, like go hire a coach. If you need help, go hire someone. Seriously, because the only time you're ever going to learn something is when you put yourself out there. And by the way, free is great, but free only gets you so far. So I think the other thing too is that what you said, maybe the cooking and isn't, those repetitive tasks don't get you to where you want to go. I'll tell you guys, the success system that I built, the time management system, literally has that in it. Food prep. When are you doing laundry? When are you cleaning your house? When are you spending time with your kids? When are you dating your spouse? When are you taking a day off? Like those are all parts of building an empire. And if you aren't willing to get yourself under control, well, then your life will be out of control, right? Like it's so simple. However, I think that, it's the practice and knowing that you're going to start on that journey of intentional success and you are going to suck at it for a little while. And that's okay, right? Like it's just okay. But what do? We pick ourselves up and we do it again. We pick it up. I teach time management, and there are weeks in my calendar that I haven't touched with a pen. Like that's just how it is. Exactly. But does that mean, oh, well, now I'm a failure, forget it, it doesn't work? No, it means I'm going to sit down, pick it up, get back at it, and do it again.
It's that idea, John Maxwell, fail forward.
Right.
Fail into your next one, fail into your next one, fail into your next one. And it is really so true that we can be controlled by fear. We're going to be controlled by something, right? So we can be controlled by fear that takes the reins of the runaway horse carriage, whatever you want to call it, or we can take control of ourselves. And when we so a lot of people think they're taking control, but they are taking control from a place of fear. They're avoiding something. They're avoiding pain. They're avoiding failure most of the time. They're avoiding disapproval. Those are the biggest drivers, failure and disapproval. And when we take the reins and we are controlling, we are steering the horses and saying, I'm going in this direction. Yes, there's going to be failure. Yes, there's going to be disapproval, but it doesn't matter. I'm going anyway, because it's the whole, and I say this all the time, I think I even said this on the last show, it's the whole like walking on the water. As long as Peter was walking on the water, keeping his eyes on Jesus, he didn't sink into the water. Right? If you've got your eyes on the bigger goal, all the things that want to drag you down in between where you are now and where your goal is, they can't get you, because your focus is so much longer and bigger and stronger than anything that could take you down.
So true.
It's just really cool. And I think as people are listening to this, you might even want to listen to it more than once, because there's a lot of gold in here, and it applies whether you're building an empire, whether you're building a body that takes you to that place, that next iteration of yourself, or all of those things. I think it applies to any life situation, and it's really, really powerful. So Melanie, I don't want to overload anybody, because this is really deep and wide and strong information that you shared. Again, I hope you guys listening are as just impressed and wowed with Melanie as a person. You can tell, as I told you in the beginning, she is a powerhouse. She is a force of nature, this woman, and she's just not stopping. And so, Melanie, I just want to thank you so much for being here today. It's just been an absolute treat. I feel inspired and empowered, encouraged, and I just want to keep tuning into what you're doing. So I'm going to make sure that I have all your links in the show notes so people can get in touch with you, follow you on social, whatever they need to do, because you're just, you're great at what you do. And I know a lot of people will want to be connected to you. So thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you, Annie, for everything that you're doing. I just, encourage you on your path, because so many people are right where they need to be to hear your message. And as they hear it, I know those seeds of faith and faithfulness and getting back up again and becoming bold, brave, and sassy is going to reach them, and you're going to change the world with it. It's very cool.
Thank you so much. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. And I hope that you'll stop by again to listen into the Bold, Brave, and Sassy show. We have a lot of fun. We tackle some really big issues. And at the end of the day, it's just helping you to walk confidently, unapologetically into the person that God made you to be. And I hope that we've helped you to do that today. Take care and talk to you next time. Make sure to tune in on iTunes, subscribe and review and share with friends. I'd love that. Thanks so much.